2547. Let me make sure they bring them. 2547. Yeah. Are you there? Okay. Yeah. We also have sent copies of the budget speech up here. They need to bring them as quickly as possible, at least for the members of the House. Okay. Okay.
Honorable members, the usual theme, all cellular phones must be switched off or on a different mode, flight mode or any other mode that can stop interference. We shall start momentarily. Order for Mr. Speaker.
Quoting from the book of the Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy path. Dear Father, we are so thankful unto you for traveling mercies and for all the other mercies that you have granted us, that we could be here in this honorable house to take care of such an important bill today. Father, we realize that when we look at it, this document that we are going to deal with here this evening, I would consider it as one of the most difficult, trying, and hard tasks that we have to go through to make it possible here this evening. I want to, in a very special way, give thanks to the Ministry of Finance, all of those who have worked so hard, night and day, to produce this document. Dear Lord, I want to thank also the Governor's Office, and I want to thank the whole civil service and all the people of Anguilla who are working together to help Anguilla to go forward. And we put our trust and confidence in you, dear Jesus, because we know that regardless to who will have what to say, you have the last word, and your word is the greatest of all. So, dear Lord, this evening, I pray in a very special way that you will bless the Honorable Mr. Banks as he presents this to us this evening. Bless all of us as we work together and as we continue to trust in you, because I know that you will help us to rise again, and we will go forward in victory, from victory to victory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Confirmation of minutes, none. Oaths of allegiance, none. Announcements by the direction of the Speaker.
First of all, let me welcome each and every one to this sitting. Welcome to the 55th meeting of this House. This meeting is called to progress the 2018 Appropriations Bill. This budget is one of the single most important budgets in the history of Anguilla, as we continue to rebuild our island after the passage of Hurricane Irma and a crippling global economy. I hope that all the members of this honorable House grasp the gravity of the impending situation I have admonished the members to demonstrate this gravity in the debate and actions over the next 2 days, over the 2 days. Today will be the first reading, and Monday, April 30th, the debates and passage of the bill will be done. I appeal to all members to ensure that the people's business is conducted in a manner that dignifies this honorable house and the people it represents. I also want to encourage each and every one to listen carefully and to respect the debate as it goes forward, whether you're in the gallery or sitting as members of the House. And for the listening public, it is streamed live, HOA Facebook link, and live on Radio AXA, Radio Anguilla. Thank you.
Reports from committees? None. Petitions? None. Government notices? None. Unofficial notices? None. Questions? None. Motions? None. Other business, government business, appropriation 2018 bill, 2018, first reading. A bill to provide for the services of the government of Anguilla for the financial year ending 31st day of December 2018. Appropriation 2018 bill, 2018, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I ask your indulgence as we prepare the podium for presentation of the budget address. And while I'm on my feet, I would like to apologize to members of the Honorable House for the fact that the copies of the budget speech have not yet arrived. They will be here shortly, and you will have the opportunity to follow as we go along. And I'm hopeful that a few copies will be available for members of the gallery as well. And of course, certainly the press will be given copies, hard copies as well as electronic. So we'll pause for a moment to get this out. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, calling members of this honorable House, leader of the opposition, other members, invited guests, public servants, Anguillians, friends and investors, and more persons listening on radio, television, and the internet, including the Anguillian diaspora communities around the globe. Good afternoon. It is my duty as Minister of Finance to present government's budgetary proposals for the 2018 fiscal year. You may have noticed that it has been a long time in coming. Every year that I carry out this function, I construct my address around the central theme, Last year, the theme was Angola at 50, celebration and realignment. Reflected on the advances made in our small island 50 years following the revolution, while looking ahead, Mr. Speaker, to the next 50 years of modern Angola. Mr. Speaker, 3 months and a few days following the much anticipated 50th anniversary of Angola Day celebrations, we were at the mercy of the most devastating weather event to hit Angola and neighboring islands of the region. Hurricane Irma, on September 6, 2017, reset the clock on modern Angola and what we do as we move is no more critical than ever before. Such experiences, Mr. Speaker, bring to the forefront the realities that small island development states face as they seek to develop. We contribute the least to the causes of climate change and are more affected than anyone else. We are small fish in the global pond and suffer greatly from economic, financial, and environmental fallout. We have to survive in an ever-changing global ecosystem. This reality informs the theme for this year's budget address. And I quote, 2018 and beyond, Angola 2.0, green, smart, resilient, and inclusive. Mr. Speaker, the modern Angola we seek to establish must be cognizant of the systemic realities and has to adopt behaviors that promote sustainable and harmonious living within that space. As a country and a government, we have to be smart, utilizing the technologies that are available to our benefit, and we have to maintain and hone the resilience for which we are renowned, so as to be able to respond effectively to any crisis that we may face, whether it be natural or man-made. Mr. Speaker, as we pursue these objectives, we must be inclusive, hearing from the individuals, communities, and entities that make up our island, thereby encouraging active participation and ownership as we seek to move forward together. Mr. Speaker, in order to achieve a green Angola, we have to be committed to the pursuit of knowledge and employ practices that will lead to more environmentally friendly and ecologically responsible decisions, as well as lifestyles to protect and sustain our natural resources for current and future generations. This seems a noble and impressive sounding idea, but what does it really mean in practical terms? Mr. Speaker, it can be as simple as putting in place an environmental awareness campaign in the schools and in the communities, or it can be as targeted as banning the use of plastic bags, styrofoam, and other plastic products. Such products take years to break down, and therefore challenges associated with their disposal negatively impact the environment, especially when they are discarded inappropriately. Government will shortly be implementing policies and legislation to ban the use of these items, plastic bags and styrofoam containers, and to incentivize businesses to change their practices with regards to importation of these items. A green Angola is also as simple as transforming the energy sector by pursuing renewable energy options as an alternative to fossil fuel, thereby increasing our energy independence. This administration is in the process of reviewing and updating legislation to put the mechanism in place to support this initiative, as well as the corporatization of angling, to better enable it to transform into a modern, climate-friendly, and resilient utility. Mr. Speaker, much of our infrastructure was severely damaged by Hurricane Irma to varying degrees. Parts of our secondary school and primary schools had to be demolished, as well as the ferry terminal in Low Point. But out of that disaster has come the opportunity to build back better, stronger, and yet greener. We have made leaps and bounds in our environmental consciousness and construction practices over the past years, even going back to Hurricane Dana. We have trained professionals and the expertise to determine the best methods requisite for modern, eco-friendly, and disaster-resilient facilities. And post-Hurricane Irma reconstruction offers the opportunity to act on our wishes for the modern facilities we will be constructing. Mr. Speaker, there is no better time than now. As we continue in Anguilla's development, it is important that we employ effective strategies, and we must be smart about it. It involves utilizing the technologies that are available in the various sectors, including energy, communication, e-government services, all of which have transformational potential. As a progressive nation, we must utilize appropriate technology at all levels of the process. It is not simply an available option, it is the only option. Technology has become a tool at our disposal, and we must use it efficiently and effectively to achieve the desired results. Technology, Mr. Speaker, would help us to manage our scarce resources in a manner that reduces waste and provides quality goods and services. As we build Anguilla 2.0, our expectations must be tempered with patience and sacrifice. The fact that we have to plan is a signal that patience is required. We want you to be patient, but we also want to hear your views, and we urge you to use every available opportunity to be a part of that consultative process in an informed way. The National Development Plan, as the United Kingdom Finance Project, has been postponed at this time. However, this does not postpone the urgency of development and inclusive dialogue in Anguilla. The Anguillan community are all stakeholders. And as we all know, Anguilla is an egalitarian society. This island belongs to all of us. So we need not turn away or refuse to be a part of any forum which will be seeking our views on Anguilla's future in a structured and informed manner. Mr. Speaker, quite recently, the government has posted for consultation a criminal justice reform bill. We recognize that to establish a just society, we must ensure that all persons receive a fair deal. And most of all, since we reside in a society where persons are innocent until proven guilty, it is our responsibility to put in place legislation that ensures that the innocent are not wrongly punished, and for those that are convicted, the system works effectively where possible to allow their re-entry into the community rehabilitated. It also puts in place the enforcement of measures for the safety of citizens, like the requirement for seat belts and booster seats. All these reform measures have come about by listening to the community and addressing their concerns through the legislative process. The Criminal Justice Reform Bill seeks to protect the children and the vulnerable. It criminalizes child pornography as well as criminalizes the sharing of indecent imagery and child grooming. It also legislates for evidential and procedural changes to permit children and vulnerable witnesses to give evidence in court more easily. The bill also decriminalizes small amounts of cannabis, that is marijuana, for recreational use. This cannabis issue is only a small part of the bill, but has attracted a lot of attention. It must therefore be pointed out that the government's official position remains that cannabis is harmful and illegal. However, a person found with less than 10 grams of cannabis will not be charged with a criminal offense once the desired legislation has been put in place. The view is that far too many young men are having their lives blighted by criminal convictions for cannabis possession, which may lead them to a life of crime, impede their job prospects, and hinder overseas travel. This measure seems the most viable solution, given the fact that cannabis consumption remains a live issue despite many years of effective law enforcement. You may ask why I speak to these issues in a budget address. The answer is quite simple. The quality of social justice and criminal justice is an important factor in creating a stable society and economy. Mr. Speaker, to close out these introductory comments, may I suggest that we think of resilience not only as our ability to withstand and respond to natural disasters, like hurricanes, but we need to also build economic and social resilience. Our island is dependent on tourism, the sector that is hardest hit by natural disasters. This has severe run-on implications for the island as a whole, for government and households. Recognizing it has been the wish of many administrations to diversify the economy by developing other sectors and seeking alternative revenue-generating sources, this administration, over the medium term, will pursue issues and initiatives like permanent residency by investment, seek to develop the fisheries sector, and an offshore fisheries licensing regime, develop ship and aircraft registry, among other initiatives that I will outline later. On the social side, this administration is desirous of taking steps to implement a national health fund that will better cater to the health needs of all Angolans and ease the weight of ill health that is burdening our society. Mr. Speaker, what I have said so far is by way of establishing the theme for this presentation: green, smart, resilient, and I'm sure the leader of the opposition will like to know, inclusive. Setting the stage, as it were, I will now attempt an efficient presentation of the budgetary arrangements for the various ministries and departments. It represents the programs, plans, projects, and activities for delivering the objectives of government. It is the handiwork of hard-working public officials in the line ministries, including permanent secretaries, heads of department, members of executive council, as well as the leadership support of my colleague ministers. Obviously, the final product is constrained by the challenges we face from many fronts, natural and man-made. Mr. Speaker, we will now embark on a review of the economy in 2017. It is more critical now than ever before that we now, in the context of the 2018 budget presentation, meaningfully consider the state and health of our economy, upon which the entire budget is built. We have seen that despite having the most expertly produced budget projections, with the requisite plans and monitoring frameworks in place. Anything that disrupts the flow of the economy will knock our budget flat on its back. Mr. Speaker, I am of course referring to the effects of the notorious Hurricane Irma, which tossed our 2017 budget out of the window, literally. Despite significant performance ahead of our budget projections right up to September 1st last year, Hurricane Irma destroyed and disrupted so much of our economy's engines of growth and the critical infrastructure that supports them, that a subpar end of the year performance by our industries was the natural outcome, unarguably beyond anyone's control. To quantify the damage, Mr. Speaker, projections suggest that the economy declined by 3.52% in real terms, rather than the 3.5% expansion that we projected for 2007. The official damage assessment report produced by the reputable ECLAC, Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, estimates that the total cost of Hurricane Irma in Angola was EC $880.4 million, of which damages were 507 million EC dollars in losses. Losses which Captain Disruptive Crews going forward were 331.5 million EC dollars, an additional cost of 41.9 million EC dollars. Mr. Speaker, to put that number in a bit of context, the total value of all economic activity on Angola for the entire 2017 year was $909.76 million EC dollars. And with the cost of Hurricane Irma at 880 million EC dollars, Mr. Speaker, that hurricane basically costs us everything we have. The significance of this suffering cannot be underestimated. Last year was a year of great challenge and a true test of the resilience for our economy, Mr. Speaker. The tourism sector, the driving force of our economy, declined by a massive 10.41%, despite having started the 2017 year with a promising uptick. We experienced increases in visitor arrivals in every month preceding the catastrophic Hurricane Irma in September compared to the arrivals in 2016. Tourism arrivals from January to August increased over the year before by 7.1%. However, the crippling impact of the hurricane, which destroyed hotel plant, infrastructure, ports, communications, and the state of Angola's tourism product in total, resulted in a massive curtailing of arrivals for the remainder of the year, resulting in a 39.9% decline in tourists for the year overall. The economic performance of the extended closure of the major hotels stretches well into the performance of the economy in 2018. As we know, the 2018 tourism season began in the latter months of 2017. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, our other large industries too also experienced perilous declines. Transport, storage, and communication declined by 11.7%, which was obvious given this sector's critical reliance on physical infrastructure. As well, the wholesale and retail trade sector, which in some way boxes consumption patterns by locals and visitors, declined by 8%. The real estate, renting, and business activities sector declined by a small 0.8%. However, given the massive size of this sector, it represents a significant loss to economic activity. Hurricane Irma's ravaging forces had no respect for the sector, with massive destruction in even for smaller sectors like agriculture, which declined by 12.21%. Fishing, which declined by 1%. And lastly, the electricity and water sector, which declined by only a small 1%, saved only by a robust performance in the months before Hurricane Irma. However, Mr. Speaker, in the midst of our suffering, God often sends the damper. In 2017, our Daniel arrived dressed in blocks, cement, and steel to save us. Yet again, for Ireland's hurricane-induced economic crisis. The construction sector, Mr. Speaker, showed up for us in a big way in 2017. Construction activity, in fact, increased by a rousing 8.99% in 2017. Its strong performance was based mainly on a few months of heightened activity at the latter part of the year as debris removal, rebuilding and construction efforts commenced shortly after the passage of the storm. The sheer speed in which our little island was able to redirect resources towards reconstructed works was such that our five-star parties could resume operations at the usually high standard of operations within a short time of an off-the-chart hurricane experience. This suggests and exemplifies the resilience of our people and our construction sector. As a spin-off of the construction thrust, there are also expansions experienced in the manufacturing sector to the tune of 5%, as well as similar expansion in the small mining and quarrying sector. Mr. Speaker, following a year of hurricane-induced decline, it is anticipated that the economy will rebound substantially in 2018, with real growth projected at a robust 7.05%. We have already seen the fruits of our expansion coming from the latter months of 2017. Even now, already in 2018, as we have seen the return of major tourism properties to the impressive core of properties which were able to weather the storm and resume operations under tough conditions speedily after Irma's passage. These outstanding tourism properties employ much of our labor force and contribute to so many facets of our economy, both directly and indirectly. Mr. Speaker, all signs suggest that 2018 will be a year of expansion for Angola's economy, a year for rebirth, Angola 2.0, green, smart, resilient, and exclusive. Mr. Speaker, I will now indulge us in a fiscal review. We will turn our attention to government's fiscal position at the end of 2017. This involves a review of the recurrent revenue and expenditure accounts, combining this with capital accounts. Debt payments will also be considered to give a true picture of the government's overall fiscal balance. Let me first go to recurrent revenue. Mr. Speaker, I just provided a thorough review of what transpired in the economy in 2017 as a result of the impact of Hurricane Irma. The state of the economy directly impacts revenue generation, and that was no different for 2017. The 2000 revenue estimate was 214.9 million EC dollars. The revenue estimate was based on projected improvements to the economy and improved compliance. Actual revenue collections total $192 million EC. Collections were 10.66% or $22.91 million less than budgeted for, but more significant was 1.8% more than the 2016 collections. Some might find this surprising, given the significant impact of Hurricane Irma during the latter part of the year. But it should be noted that revenue collections at the end of August 2017 was 16.45% higher than the same period in 2016. Mr. Speaker, the top 5 contributors to recurrent revenue, accounts for some 52.1% of total collections in 2017. And they were import duty above, accommodation tax, stamp duty, customs surcharge, and the interim stabilization levy. Collections on the import duty total some $40.37 million. Accommodation tax recorded an increase in collections in 2017, totaling $90.6 million EC. Stamp duty collections total $16.01 million. Customs surcharge contributed $15.8 million to recurrent revenue in 2017. And the interim stabilization levy totaled $14.14 million. Mr. Speaker, as we go down, import duty, customs surcharge, and the interim stabilization levy came in under the budget estimate, and 2016 collection due in part to the economic climate that prevailed in the latter part of 2017. On the other hand, accommodation tax and stamp duty surpassed budgetary estimates due to increased tourism arrivals up to the passage of Hurricane Irma and the sale of Captain Lugo in the first half of the year. I will now turn to recurrent expenditure. Mr. Speaker, on the recurrent expenditure side, government was able to maintain expenditure at a reasonable level, below the original budget estimate, despite the effects of Hurricane Irma and the resulting immediate needs. The underspend means that some of the programming for 2017 had to be delayed, recognizing that we cannot spend what we do not have to further compound an already stressed fiscal climate. The 2017 recurrent expenditure estimate was $211.96 million. An actual spend total $195.43 million, which is 7.79% or $16.53 million less than the estimate. However, this represented an increase of $6.41 million or 3.39% over expenditure in 2016. As a consequence, Mr. Speaker, the recurrent balance, which is the difference between recurrent revenue and recurrent expenditure, was a mere deficit of $3.43 million in 2017. I turn now to capital revenue and grants. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, capital revenue and grants totaled $37.9 million, comprising the UK government a contribution of $8.15 million, the European Development Fund of $11.61 million, and the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, which we call CRIF, at some $18.14 million. Capital expenditure for 2017 total $21.02 million. And Mr. Speaker, this represents 47.7% of the $44 million that was budgeted. So, Mr. Speaker, at the outset, the majority of the expenditure was scheduled to support various projects, including the development of the Road Bay Jetty, the crafting of a national development plan, development of the Anguilla Community College, completion of the Fire Services Development Project, and the development of the Albino Lake Hodge Comprehensive School Master Plan. In reality, project delays ensued and significant progress was only made in the construction of the fire hall and air traffic control tower, information systems development, the Albino Lake Hodge Comprehensive School Master Development Plan. And while capital expenditure in 2017 was more elevated than in recent years, that reason was little cause for celebration. It is, of course, because of the response to Hurricane Irma, for the majority of the capital expenditure took place during 2017. Fortuitously, the government of Anguilla continued its participation in the CRIF fund, that is the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility. And following Hurricane Irma, we quickly received payouts within 2 weeks of $18.14 million for the purpose of recovery and mitigation. To date, these funds have been used for island-wide cleanup, repairs to schools and other government buildings, cleaning services, rental of bins, building demolition, rental of vehicles, fuel, generator installations, heavy equipment rental, trucking supplies, trucking of debris, furniture replacement, IT equipment replacement, security services, the list goes on. Additionally, there were transfers to the health authority to support hospital repairs, to ASPA to secure the port facilities, and to the Water Corporation to facilitate the repairs to the water distribution network and to restore running water throughout Anguilla. The government wishes to extend its gratitude to the swift and comprehensive response of the UK government, as seen in the dispatch of ships and aircraft with supplies, and the deployment of soldiers and other key personnel to support the recovery efforts. Also of great support was the Disaster Management Emergency Relief Grants from the Caribbean Development Bank in the amount of $200,000 US, and the assistance received from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank of $1 million, the government of St. Vincent of $40 million, the government of St. Kitts of $400 million, and the government of Grenada. The government of St. Vincent of $135 million, the government of St. Kitts of $400 million, and the government of Grenada. 400,000, I'm sorry. 400,000. I'm beginning to think in millions now. That's a good sign. We thank them for swiftly coming to our aid. The capital balance. So when we put the capital expenditure, the capital revenue, the recurrent revenue, and the recurrent expenditure all together, the balance on the capital side, capital grants in cash and in kind total $37.9 million, and capital expenditure total $21.02 million. This translates in a surplus on the capital side of $16.88 million. And now we look at the overall balance, that is capital as well as recurrent. The overall balance takes into account the revenue balance, the recurrent balance, the capital balance, and debt payments. On the recurrent side, a deficit of $3.43 million was recorded. A surplus of $16.88 million was recorded on the capital account, which puts the government in a surplus position of $13.45 million before debt amortization is considered. And debt amortization payments for 2017 were $22.34 million. It was the financing of this overall deficit of $8.89 million. That's the difference between the $13.45 million deficit and the $22.34 million that we made in payment of loans, etc. Included, the way we financed that included the use of fiscal reserves. It should be noted that financing flows exceeding financing meet needs and the surplus funds were placed in a sinking fund, which was created in 2017 to be used for future debt amortization payments. So whatever residue was available, it has been put in a special fund so that we can contribute that towards our debt amortization payments in the future. Let's look at the debt report. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our debt management objectives, sound debt management must persist, and my government will continue to monitor the debt situation and take the appropriate action through government fiscal reform programs to ensure that the debt level is consistent with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2013. That means, Mr. Speaker, that when we are in a particular position as far as the debt is concerned, our debt payments are concerned, our reserves are concerned, it requires that the British government signs off on all the aid, on all the borrowing that we do. That was a part of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2017. 13. So, Mr. Speaker, total public debt, which comprises central government and government guaranteed debt, declined by $34.74 million, that is 6.3%, from the 2016 debt stock of $551.84 million, which is 59.7% of GDP, to $517 million, or 56.84% of GDP. The decline is due to scheduled amortization exceeding disbursements. And central government debt stock decreased from $539.58 million in 2016 to $506.76 million at the end of 2017. And government guaranteed debt decreased from $12.26 million in 2016 to $10.3 million at the end of 2017. What that represents, Mr. Speaker, is that when you pay your loans, the principal and the interest remain and goes down. Of the outstanding debt for the period under review, central government debt accounted for 98.0% of the portfolio, while the remaining 2% was attributed to government guarantees comprising of loans for the Anguilla Development Board, the Anguilla Tourist Board, and the Anguilla Air and Seaports Authority. Domestic debt accounts for 62.62% of the portfolio, and external debt, the remaining 37.38%. Mr. Speaker, during the fiscal year 2017, there was no new borrowing, as all debt related to the banking resolution was recognized in 2016. However, there was a disbursement of some $30,000 on the Anguilla Community College project loan. There was no new borrowing or disbursements associated with the government guarantees. And Mr. Speaker, debt servicing costs continue to rise over the last 3 years due to the increase in new debt contracted in 2016, of course, to the aid in the resolution of the banking crisis, and the expiration of the moratorium on the CDB policy-based loan in the last quarter of 2015, as well as the heavy reliance on the ECCB cash advance facility and the overdraft facility with the National Commercial Bank of Anguilla, NCBA. Central government debt servicing costs is projected to increase from $38.71 million in 2017 to $45.91 million in 2018, which represents an increase of 18.6% or $7.2 million. This government stands committed to managing these increasing costs through prudent debt management. And in accordance with the Framework for Fiscal Sustainability and Development, the government of Anguilla was required to be in full compliance with the borrowing limits by the end of 2017. That was envisioned before all this took place. However, with the UK government approved borrowing in support of the banking resolution, the compliance debt has been extended to 2025. The borrowing limits include the net debt and debt service ratios, which should not extend or exceed 80% and 10% of the recurrent revenue, respectively, and liquid assets that will be sufficient to cover 90 days or 25% of recurrent expenditure. At the end of 2017, the net debt ratio was at 264.86%. The debt service at 20.63%, and liquid reserves at 0.9%, or roughly 3 days. It is anticipated that new debt will be contracted in 2018 to help finance the recurrent budgetary needs in the absence of any UK government recurrent budget grant assistance. And the government of Anguilla will be making the case to the UK to extend the compliance date for the fiscal ratios from 2025 to 2030, given the fiscal impacts of Hurricane Irma. Mr. Speaker, our government is aware that there are inherent risks in the debt portfolio. Debt servicing in particular could pose a challenge going forward. Hence, government will continue to explore innovative options for managing public debt, such as debt relief and debt for equity and debt for climate change swaps that could provide an avenue for lowering borrowing costs while focusing on effective debt management to curb the costs and risk associated with growing debt levels. We now go to recurrent expenditure for 2018. Mr. Speaker, the recurrent expenditure estimate for 2018 fiscal year is projected to be $202.15 million, excluding amortization of $27.2 million. This is a 4.63% decrease or $9.8 million difference when compared to the 2017 approved recurrent budget of $211.96 million. This reduction is due in part to an expenditure review undertaken by ministries and departments. Personal emoluments has an estimated 2018 budget of $85.93 million, which is a change of 3.08% or $2.73 million difference over 2017 approved budget of $88.66. So there is a reduction in 2018 of the personal emoluments budget. This reduction is a result of the deferral of filing some vacant positions across government, and the retiring benefits remains at the 2017 approved budget levels of $10.76 million. Interest payments, which includes both domestic and foreign, has an assessed budget of $18.89 million, an increase of $1.46 million from the 2017 approved budget of $17.43 million. This increase is to facilitate an upturn in the variable interest rate and propose new debt from the Caribbean Development Bank. Goods and services saw an overall reduction of 7.67%, taking the 2018 budget to $41.64 million from a 2017 approved budget of $49.32 million. This reduction was a result of savings accrued from the expenditure review which was undertaken. The training budget for 2019 million, a project of 3.19 million falls within this category and suffered a significant reduction of 5.5 million when compared to the approved budget of 8.74 million. Mr. Speaker, this drastic reduction was not an easy decision to make. As a matter of fact, it hurts my heart, as it is a reduction in the funding that supports the training needs of the young people of this country. Hence, the training budget allocated for 2018 is assigned for students currently abroad and the expected 2018 Ireland Scholar. Current transfers has an estimated budget of some 44.92 million. This is a reduction of 1.87% over 2017 approved budget of 45.77 million. Under this account, payments are made to statutory bodies, medical treatment, and social services initiatives. Mr. Speaker, I will now detail each ministry's 2018 expenditure allocation, as well as the initiatives planned for 2018. The heading of His Excellency the Governor's departments. The 2018 recurrent budget for the Governor's Office and departments is $25.18 million. This represents a decrease of 17.51%, or 5.34 million over the 2017 approved budget of 30.52 million. This cut is mainly as a result of a reduction in training, which falls under the Department of Public Administration. And for those of you who do not know, the Department of Public Administration falls under the Governor's Office. Referring to public administration, Mr. Speaker, it will continue to collaborate with the Department of Information Technology, E-Government Services, and in 2018 to provide the online recruitment experience for customers, as well as implement other phases in the automated online system. Public administration also hopes to overview the recruitment process to ensure transparency, equity, fair play, justice, and consistency. And public administration will continue to focus on reforming the Anguilla Public Service and building the necessary leadership and management capacity. Public administration will work with ministries and departments over the period April to June 2018 to undertake the change readiness assessment, a key part of preparing to implement change initiatives, and the cultural assessment to assist in understanding barriers to change, the current culture and subcultures within the Anguilla Public Service, and identifying positive cultures that exist to support change. Furthermore, public administration hopes to undertake an assessment of the human resource management systems, policies, and practices to assess their effectiveness. What I'm actually doing now, Mr. Speaker, is taking reports from the various ministries as to what their programs and policies are for 2018, which impacts the kind of support they would expect from the budget and outlines the kind of programs that they're undertaking for the people of Anguilla. We now go to the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Ministry of Home Affairs has seen a sharp increase in the 2018 recurrent budget, with a total of 38.22 million compared to the 2017 approved budget of 7.32 million. So it has gone from 38.22 million in 2017, 7.32 million in 2017 to 38.22 million in 2018. This has nothing to do with the minister putting anything in the wrong place. This increase is a result of the transfer of the Departments of Education and Library Service from the Ministry of Social Development, which was then held by the Minister of Health, the Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Rogers, to the Ministry of Home Affairs. An additional Department of Environment was also transferred to the Ministry of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Education are committed to providing high-quality service to the public in all areas under its remit. Even with the devastating blow received by the ministry as a result of the passage of Hurricane Irma, the ministry remains steadfast in its quest to provide wide-ranging educational services to the Anguillan community, relevant and reliable sources of information, modern labor legislation, and sound border control and immigration policies. The focus of 2018 will be to redevelop and improve existing infrastructure, build human resource capacity, and work towards ensuring better preparedness and resilience for our labor force and our general operations. In education, the Ministry of Education remains committed to provide quality education services at all levels. Mr. Speaker, this year, our work will continue on the implementation of the 2015 to 2020 Sector Strategy Education and Training for a Better Future Vision 2020. Special emphasis will be given to a number of priority areas. At the early childhood level, focus will be placed on review and renewal of the national curriculum and its alignment with the OECS document, as well as continuing institutionalization of the standards for the regulations of early childhood services. At primary, continued improvements in literacy and numeracy will be the focus. And for the secondary level, certification of courses in technical, vocational education and training, as well as greater use of technology in teaching and learning. And in decision-making, there will also be increased emphasis on school safety and building resilience at all levels of our education system. Mr. Speaker, the Anguilla Community College will continue to pursue its mandate to service the needs of varied persons across Anguilla. The college will consider alternative matriculation and foundation courses to ensure that individuals who had not previously met entry requirements could do so with support and intervention. It is hoped that those youth who have now been more convinced of the advantages of post-secondary education would avail themselves of this opportunity. The college will also seek to enhance its student support systems to promote greater retention of students and a higher rate of program completion. And in 2018, emphasis will be placed on vocational training and a range of short courses aimed to meet niche areas of need in the community. And the Anguilla Community College anticipates the commencement of the building at Long Path and will also continue to prepare for the eventual full transition of the sixth form to that institution. As the college moves forward, it will also strengthen systems for financial and operational accountability. The Department of Library Services continues to work at ensuring its continued relevance in a time of changing media priorities. The department's strategic plan for the ensuing 5 years is presently being finalized and will feature 4 broad priority areas. 1, human resource development. 2, financing of library services. 3, remaining relevant. And 5, customer focus and management of resources. Mr. Speaker, among the new initiatives being undertaken is the Wall of Art, highlighting the work of artists operating locally, the Mover and Shakers, and a wall dedicated to those who helped to build Anguilla. Permission has also been granted for the library to begin offering coffee to its clientele at a minimal cost, with the funds raised going towards augmenting the department's budgetary allocation. The Department of Information and Broadcasting. After valiantly surviving a devastating blow by Hurricane Irma in 2017, the National Broadcasting Station is on a track to becoming more resilient with equipment that will ensure that coverage is better than ever. Following decades of renting transmitter and antenna space, the station is now setting up to transmit from government facilities at Crocus Hill. 2018 will see the return of the department's regular local broadcasting hours of 17.5 hours a day, from 5:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. Just as the entire community is reinventing itself, Radio Anguilla is looking to do the same in 2018 with revamped and refocused programming, and it will continue to focus on local input with community outreach being a priority. Its news and information will remain as reliable as it always is. The Department of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, emphasis was placed in 2017 on improving the processes within Immigration Department. Effective June 1st, 2017, there were changes to the immigration policy that are intended to encourage travel to Anguilla and facilitate ease of entry without compromising border security. There were also changes to the Immigration and Passport Act to allow children born in Anguilla and grandchildren to reside and work without having to pay fees and obtain a work permit. During the year, continued focus was placed on improving the human resources with the department by ensuring that officers receive relevant training, and the department continues its effectiveness of illegal immigrant monitoring through increased patrolling and operations within the task force section. The Immigration Department plays a pivotal role in the development of Anguilla and will continue to improve the systems within the department that would lead to more efficiency while ensuring that the security of the island remains paramount. For 2018, Mr. Speaker, there will be ongoing training for officers in the areas of customer service, fraudulent document detection, and other areas relevant to their job. The aim is to ensure that officers' skills are enhanced and the services provided to residents and visitors are at a high standard. In addition, the department would move towards implementing an online visa process. This would be beneficial to Anguilla as a whole, and in particular the tourism and hospitality sector. The Department of Labor. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Labor is poised and ready to embrace a new labor code that comprehensively addresses the need of the labor force of this country. We are also embracing the technologies which lead to greater efficiencies and improved service to our valued customers. We applaud the resilience of the labor force of Anguilla in this trying time and their willingness to develop skills and retool themselves. We will continue to strive to ensure that we provide the best possible service to the public and that we carry out our functions with fairness and integrity. And that is why, quite shortly, Mr. Speaker, and the Minister will speak to this when she rises on Monday, the importance of the labor code as it impacts the issue of social justice within the employment sector, and in particular the relationships between employers and employees in this community. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Department. The 2018 recurrent budget for the Ministry of Finance is $76.63 million. This is a 0.2% or $153,000 decrease compared to the 2017 approved budget. This is mainly attributed to the transfer out of two departments, namely the Department of Lands and Survey and the Department of Physical Planning, to the Ministry of Social Development. Likewise, the Department of Information Technology has now been transferred to the Ministry of Finance from the Ministry of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, Anguilla, like other small islands and microstates, faces unique challenges due to its size, transportation and accessibility issues, distance from major population centers, population size and density, level of autonomy, limited diversification of economic activity, and high energy costs and dependency on fossil fuel. Mr. Speaker, Hurricane Irma has reminded us of these peculiarities, challenges, and vulnerabilities but also of the need for Anguilla to accelerate and build out the ongoing work to make better use of our significant sustainable and renewable energy potential, our unique and diverse ecosystem and potential exclusive economic zone, our resilient social capital, and our indomitable strong sense of what makes us Anguillians proud, strong, and free. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the focus has been and will continue to be on the development that combines social, economic, environmental, and technological opportunities and solutions that will create and enhance a smart, diverse, and integrated island that can sustainably manage its natural resources and the life cycle of its current and future infrastructure. The goal is to commit and accelerate Anguilla becoming a smart island, using a modified definition of smart island from the Smart Island Initiative. Anguilla will follow, and I quote, a climate-resilient pathway, combining climate change, mitigation, and adaptation efforts in order to create sustainable, local, and foreign direct economic development, and a high quality of life for the local and transient population by implementing smart and integrated solutions to the management of infrastructure, natural resources, and the environment as a whole, supported by the use of information and communication technologies, all the while promoting the use of innovative and socially inclusive governance and financial schemes, unquote. This government will continue the diversification of Anguilla's economy through, and I list, enhancing and attracting diverse foreign direct investment, mixing and matching technology and tourism for smart and sustainable experiences and connectivity, creation of a special economic zone that is focused on knowledge-based businesses through the use of information and communication technologies, biomedicine, and commodities. Rebooting of the financial services industry, including attracting businesses and investment in financial technology, distributed ledger technology, and blockchain technology. To this end, the Anguilla Utility Token Offering, the Auto Act, has been given the green light by the UK government and will be enacted over the next few weeks. Also addressing Anguilla's international and national transportation needs to increase airlift and access from the current major gateways, the redevelopment of the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, the development of the Blom Point Port Facility, Road Bay Jetty, and the plans for the Corridor Development Plan Port. Focusing on the UK grants on areas such as education, health, access, and integrated digital by default public services for a more holistic, cohesive, and collaborative delivery of public service. Enhancing empirical data and statistical-based decision-making, thereby enhancing government's openness, accountability, and transparency in its decision-making processes, as well as making the best use of our own resources, such as Anguilla's potential in the exclusive economic zone, the EEZ. Also the diversification of the tourist industry by creating additional attractions and investment opportunities in the areas of marinas, heritage sites, and gaming, if the benefits outweigh the risks. The Anguilla Tourist Board, Mr. Speaker, is a part of the restructuring process, is engaging in a comprehensive staff development program and continues to strengthen the core divisions of marketing and destination experience. You would have noted this over the past months. The ATB will also implement a data results and digitally driven market plan, an innovative website, and increased presence in the marketplace. And the Governor's Office is very involved in providing some support for this. In addition, the Anguilla Tourist Board head office will embark on a number of policy development initiatives, as well as continue to engage more closely with its stakeholders. The Anguilla Tourist Board will give more focus to delivering its Beyond Extraordinary Anguilla experience to our visitors. The Destination Experience Division will be embarking on a number of initiatives aimed at developing and enhancing Anguilla's tourism product for the promotion to and encouragement of visiting guests so that they can enjoy the island's offerings, products, and services. A key objective of the Destination Experience Division is the creation of new products that will provide exciting and engaging experience for a new target market of visitors, thereby ensuring the sustainability and success of the tourist industry. And the Anguilla Tourist Board and the Ministry of Tourism will continue to work with local, regional, and international airline partners, as well as ferry operators, to enhance the guest travel experience and improve connectivity to the island. The Anguilla Tourist Board and the Ministry of Tourism collaboration will also be manifested in programs to enhance standards, customer service, and facilitation of visitor and product enhancements. The Ministry of Social Development, Mr. Speaker, with the transferring of Library Services and Education Department and the Department of Library Services, the Ministry of Social Development has a recurrent budget of 48.27 million. This is a 39.1% reduction from the 2017 approved budget of 79.28 million. The Education Department accounted for 35% of the Ministry of Social Development budget, and also the Ministry of Social Development has gained the Departments of Lands and Surveys and Physical Planning in the process. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health has engaged in extensive work on health financing and has engaged in partnership with the Pan American Health Organization and the Anguilla Social Security Board to review and revise the National Health Fund Act in an attempt to progress universal health access for the people of Anguilla. The ministry has prioritized mental health and undertook a review of the national mental health policy, training of non-health professionals such as school counselors, social workers, probation officers, and prison officers in the identification of persons at risk or showing signs of mental illness and the referral process. One registered nurse has recently completed training in mental health, and a second registered nurse is currently in Jamaica being trained in mental health and will return at the end of 2018. Additional work on the strengthening of mental health services to address the emerging mental health needs of the people of Anguilla is being pursued with partnership from the Pan American Health Organization. Mr. Speaker, the analysis of steps, and that is a program which I don't have the long form. It's an acronym, but obviously it's involved with the Global School Health Data and Production Program. And the respective reports was a major achievement for the Ministry of Social Development in the fight against the non-communicable diseases. And Mr. Speaker, I was very pleased with the presentation that was made in the Executive Council by members of the Anguilla Public Service who are involved in this sector. And a number of the things that are revealed in those statistics were eye-opening. Mr. Speaker, recommendations will be used to guide action coming out of this program and monitor and evaluate progress. And building on the findings, the following will be prioritized this year in 2018. First, national behavior change and media campaigns to increase physical activity and improve nutrition. You'll be surprised at some of the stories that you hear in this area. Legislation to reduce exposure to tobacco smoke. I was not even aware that there were so many people involved in smoking tobacco in Anguilla. The development of protocols for screening and management of major NCDs, not involved directly in smoking tobacco, but are victims of secondhand smoke. And capacity building for communities to support self-management programs, which enable patients to take responsibility and manage their condition. As far as the Department of Health Protection is concerned, Mr. Speaker, despite the ravages of Hurricane Irma, with limited resources and a non-functional environmental health unit, officers of the Department of Health Protection worked beyond the call of duty to mitigate health risks in post-Irma in the area of, but not limited to, solid waste management, vector control, food safety, and water quality. I must commend the Department of Health Protection officers for a job well done in protecting the public health And with regards to the UMA relief or budgetary support, we must acknowledge and particularly thank the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, CARPHA, and Public Health England for the provision of technical advice, vehicles, equipment, supplies, and training to mitigate risks post-Irma and beyond. Obviously, many of us were not aware of the kind of programs that were taking place during that period, but we need to note the kind of logistics that are involved in ensuring that the aftermath of a severe weather event like Irma are controlled. The Department of Health Protection finalized the procurement of waste collection bins and waste collection contracts, which, when fully implemented, will improve sanitation throughout the island. The recycling of aluminum beverage cans, tin cans, bimetallic cans, and glass containers are now components of the waste collection contracts, and this is a significant milestone, enabling Angola to promote itself as a green tourism economy. Mr. Speaker, Angola must embrace waste minimization as a waste diversion mechanism for the disposal site to increase its lifespan. Waste reduction and recycling strategies require a team approach. Everyone must be on board, and we have to take greater responsibility for keeping our premises and Angola clean. For 2018, the Department of Health Protection will continue to work closely with food establishments and vendors to ensure that Angola's food supply is protected and safe. Mr. Speaker, the Health Authority of Angola during 2018 will be a sustained force on improved, expanded, and cost-effective healthcare services, complying with the Health Act, and with regard to completion of the annual audited financial statements, strengthening of the accounting function, and maximum collections. We'll accomplish these through in a number of ways. And the minister, when he rises on Monday or Tuesday to deliver his contribution, will expand on a lot of these things. But the acquisition of instruments and equipment, acquisition and implementation of appropriate systems and processes included up-to-date standard operating procedures, utilizing a newly acquired state-of-the-art 16-slice CT scan, rehabilitating and expanding the physical facilities at the Princess Alexandra Hospital to include a new maternity wing, the building of 2 polyclinics in the Central and Western Health District, and the training and recruitment of suitably qualified human resources. Mr. Speaker, despite the many challenges which were compounded by the passage of the same Hurricane Irma, the Health Authority was able to accomplish the pre-works for the completion of 2016 and 2017 audit statements, with 2018 paving the way for full compliance with the Health Act in 2019. And the implementation of a 24-hour cashiering service at Princess Alexandra Hospital, and that is a welcome addition. The specialized training of paramedics, radiographers, psychiatric, public health, and nephrology nurses. These initiatives, coupled with continuous concentration on preventative care at the primary level and expanded surgical and neonatal intensive care services at the secondary level, will ultimately result in a decrease in government expenditure with respect to transfers overseas and, by extension, improve health for the Angola's residents and visitors. The program Partners Advocating for Violence Eradication continues to make strides in promoting a holistic approach to addressing the threats of crime and violence with a hope for eventual eradication. In 2017, Mr. Speaker, findings were shared from the research on the emergence of gun and gang-related violence in Angola, and a civic engagement framework with the ultimate goal of empowering individuals and groups to positively influence community circumstances was developed. Products geared towards changing the lives of individuals and families in Angola while empowering them to make more positive choices through education and other viable alternatives were also presented. And these projects, which will be formally launched in 2018, support interventions for parents through a national parenting program and the establishment of a literacy, numeracy, ICT program to support most vulnerable members of our adult population. In 2018, PAVE will also focus on identifying, developing, and supporting other structures that will strengthen and solidify peace building and citizen security initiatives, thus making them more sustainable. Mr. Speaker, Gender Affairs Unit is working towards realizing a vision of being, and I quote, actively committed to fostering equal and human treatment in the daily lives of every woman, man, girl, and boy, manifesting a united Angola, and a mandate, and I quote, to plan, develop, coordinate national policies, programs, and activities focused on gender equality in the workplace and wider community, unquote. Gender Affairs, actively engaging in raising awareness around the range of gender issues, namely through media engagement, regional and international relationship building, and community outreach programs and activities. In 2018, the unit will continue to build on its successes and finalize a national gender policy and strategic plan for Angola. Mr. Speaker, the staff of the Department of Probation and related agencies continue to work to support the development of services for rehabilitation of offenders and benefited from major training opportunities in 2017. Among other training opportunities for staff, the supervisor of Zeneda Haven took part in on-site training and observation in the USA at a residential facility. The department itself celebrated 12 years of operation, and the Zeneda Haven residents celebrated 8 years. These two milestones are significant in light of the fact that this means that young people and adults have been afforded alternative sentencing arrangements to incarceration for certain offenses. These services point to the maturing of the criminal justice system in Angola. The Department of Social Development. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Social Development continued to be a significant and committed player in the Angola public service and the community at large. The protection of vulnerable segments of the population remained its main mandate, while at the same time promoting well-being among all residents of Angola. The passage of Hurricane Irma resulted in significant disruption of the department's programs as personnel were assigned to relief and other activities during the immediate aftermath. Ongoing programs to combat child abuse and other forms of violence continue. Progress continues to be made with the OECS family law reform legislation in the areas of maintenance and parentage, testing bills, and child care and adoption bills. In early 2017, a scoping visit was completed by two agencies with regard to child safeguarding and protection issues. A detailed training plan was subsequently devised for the third quarter of 2017. And Mr. Speaker, the spiraling demand for assistance with medical services reveals that the health of the nation's people remains critical. In 2017, government's contribution to local overseas medical treatment remains significant and speaks to the larger issue of funding health care. And I'm sure that the Minister will speak very strongly about this when he rises. The challenge is for all individuals to adopt a lifestyle of personal responsibility and a commitment to self-empowerment. The Department of Prisons. Mr. Speaker, as with many other government structures, the plant of the Her Majesty's Prison was severely impacted by the passage of Hurricane Irma. The main roof over the residential area was lost, as well as the roofs over the kitchen and classroom area. While services to inmates were impacted by the damage, the prison service remained committed to protecting the public and the inmates of the institution. I would like to place on record the government's thanks and appreciation to the Superintendent of Prisons and her staff for the phenomenal job done during this difficult period. Training continues to be provided to the staff of Her Majesty's Prison by Her Majesty's government, and the positive results of this training are evident in the management of the prison. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Youth and Culture's principal focus in 2018 is the revision and redevelopment of the National Youth Policy for Angola. It is now vital, as we plan for the future, that we ensure that our National Youth Policy is fit for purpose, reflects new challenges, creates opportunities, and appropriately positions our young people as active participants in national development. The Department will also continue its efforts to further develop and strengthen our cultural and creative industries. Focus will be placed on creating an enabling environment that can foster greater economic opportunities for cultural practitioners and artists. Crucial actions to be taken include the legislative extension of a number of international conventions to Angola that can unlock economic benefits to our cultural practitioners and artists. Establishment of a National Arts Council and the creation of a National Cultural and Artists Registry. The Department will also begin work on the establishment and adoption of an incentive package for cultural practitioners and artists in line with the National Culture Policy. The Department of Sports, Mr. Speaker, was a very productive year for this department. In addition to support for national sports associations, teams, and athletes, the department successfully completed and launched the National Sports Policy, developed and implemented the National Sports Association's accreditation policy, hosted Summer Camp 2017, hosted the Post-Irma Sports Relief Camp, designed and conducted the first cycle of the out-of-school activity program, and launched a strength and conditioning program for athletes who were earmarked to represent Angola at the Commonwealth Games 2018 in Gold Coast, Australia. And I'm sure Mr. Connor, the Parliamentary Secretary for Sports, will report on that when he rises. The department eagerly looks forward to 2018 as it begins implementation of the National Sports Policy in earnest towards a healthier, happier Angola. The department will expand its programming to communities, youth, and the elderly as it promotes sports for all. In addition, significant focus will be placed on renovating damaged facilities and the construction of new sports facilities. And I'm sure that the Minister of Sports and the Minister of the Parliament Secretary will have a lot to say about that in the face of the fact that at least two of our athletes who perform for the UK team at the Commonwealth Games, Shara Proctor and Mrs. Arnold Hughes, gained medals at that event, and I would like to celebrate them here on this occasion, as well as point to the fact that we have the skills and the talents to go a long distance, and especially with the use and development of resources, with the support of people who use our athletes, that would be most welcome. Sports facilities were especially hard hit with damages estimated in excess of $3.22 million. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Lands and Surveys has taken on several initiatives to enable the government to better serve the public. During the course of 2018, the department will officially launch its informational site. This year, the department will be looking towards the implementation of its Land Information System, LIS, that will enable online submissions. This will assist with streamlining the registry process, which will in turn create an efficient land market. The department continues to work in collaboration with various government agencies and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States on the Global Climate Change Alliance project, which is focused on climate change adaptation. A component is the review and the development of land policies. The department is also pursuing amendments to the Land Surveyors Act and Registered Land Act to aid in the day-to-day transactions with the general public. Mr. Speaker, in the wake of Hurricane Irma and the evident threat to climate change, the Planning Department is determined and committed to build resilience in Angola's planning system. The aim is to promote the sustainable development of Angola's economy through the facilitation of proper land use planning and building practices, the creation of policy proper planning and legislation, and to support wise and orderly development. Time for the Fiscal Planning Act, I would imagine. The department also continues to work in collaboration with various government agencies and the OECS on the Global Climate Change Alliance project, and it will endeavor to effectively manage the planning and building process through proper legislation and a one-stop platform, revise the building code, expand its GIS system, broaden its public awareness program, and conduct national electric code training courses for all electricians on the island. The Ministry of Infrastructure and Departments. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Infrastructure has, in 2018, a recurrent budget of $13.83 million. I'm sure that includes the Chapel Hill. This is a 23.29% or 4.2% decrease when compared to the 2017 approved budget of $18.32 million. The reduction is as a result of the expenditure review and the transfer of the Department of Information Technology to the Ministry of Finance. As mentioned earlier, the Department of Environment has transferred from the Ministry of Home Affairs to this ministry, and the Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, Utilities, Housing, Agriculture, Fisheries, and Environment has continued its work despite the challenge of scarce financial resources to address critical infrastructure needs and other issues. A priority for the ministry is to address the reconstruction of government infrastructure damaged by Hurricane Irma and continue to address transportation advancement. This is the challenge and a case of do more or less. The Department of Infrastructure has played a critical role in securing funds for the repairs of the road jetty and for advancing the process for the proposed new jetty. The engagement of an infrastructure advisor has contributed to moving this initiative forward, and the lack of aggressive maintenance of public infrastructure over the last decade, which has highlighted last hurricane season, means that a significant portion of the government's infrastructure has to be rebuilt or replaced. Nonetheless, the Department of Infrastructure continues to work with scarce resources to undertake maintenance of public infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the Anguilla Fire and Rescue Service continues to operate under the most difficult of situations, yet they know the true spirit of what it means to be Anguillan, to be proud, and committed to ensure that the aerodrome remains open. 2018 will see the completion of the new Combined Services building, housing the new fire station and air traffic control operations. Additionally, the construction of a training facility will be addressed to ensure that fire service is well trained and has the necessary equipment to meet the aviation requirements. Department of Fisheries and Marine Resources. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the department hopes to build on accomplishments made in 2017 and will continue with regular work programs, specially funded projects. The department was successful in securing funds for initiatives from Darwin and biodiversity and ecosystem services in territories of European overseas territories, referred to as BESS, over a period of 4 years. The projects will bring about working collaborations between the Department of Fisheries, local and regional and international government agencies, and the department's regular activities, initiatives, will be complemented by the work and outcomes from the initiatives supported by the BEST and Darwin programs, and collectively have greater impacts for the fisheries sector. And in 2018, the department will focus on empowering and strengthening fishers and the fishing industry. The Department of Agriculture, both at its organizational and activity levels, continues to face many challenges, Mr. Speaker. In 2018, the Department of Agriculture and the National Farmers Association welcomed the fact that attention is finally being placed on the contribution that agriculture can make to the economy. The vision of the Department of Agriculture is to see a significant decrease in imported food by encouraging optimal use of available arable lands for agricultural production. This, of course, must include poultry. And in 2018, the department will be creative in the provision of services that addresses tractor services, crop production, and the surveillance of the genetic improvements of breeds of animals to address sustainable livestock services. Mr. Speaker, the key national programs will continue in 2018 in the Department of Environment and focus on enabling sustainable national development. The department will continue to lead on the government of Anguilla's energy audit of the various ministries and the implementation of the conservation efforts for expenditure reduction. The development and rollout of a data portal created for the government of Anguilla, aptly dubbed Anguilla's Data Gateway, a web-based portal for spatial data that resides in several agencies across the Anguilla Public Service, will also be finalized. The department's initiative for a research component saw the launch and operationalization of the Mid-Atlantic Environmental Research Institute in partnership with the Ministry of Education and the Anguilla Community College. The operationalization of the law of the OECS Global Climate Change Alliance funded streamlining of green waste project is also slated for 2018. And in 2018, the ongoing merger of the three agencies, that is the Department of Agriculture, Department of Environment, and Department of Fisheries and Marine Resources, will be completed. This will allow for more efficiencies and better use of existing resources. The new agency will be launched in the 2019 budget preparation. We'll turn now, Mr. Speaker, to recurrent revenue. Mr. Speaker, the recurrent revenue estimate for 2018 is at $177.5 million, which is a 17.4% reduction over the 2017 recurrent revenue estimate of $214.89 million. This severe reduction is due to the anticipated economic downturn, in the tourism and related sectors following the passage of Hurricane Irma. Mr. Speaker, I will now review the recurrent revenue estimate by revenue classification. On the tax revenue, taxes on property is projected to bring in about $4.76 million. That's house tax. This is a 33.68% reduction from 2017 collections. This reduction is due to the impact of Hurricane Irma on the housing stock and the relief that will be afforded affected individuals. Taxes on income, that is like the interim stabilization levy, is anticipated to bring in about $11.98 million, a reduction of 15.23% when compared to the 2017 outturn of $14.4 million. This reduction is based on an anticipated reduction in employment and wages resulting from the closure of establishments and the impact of Irma on the tourism sector during peak season. Taxes on domestic goods and services is estimated at $28.99 million, a 44.19% reduction when compared to the 2018 collection of $49.77 million. A major revenue account affected under this section is Accommodation Tax, which is estimated to bring in $7.24 million, which is a 63.21% less than the collection figure of 2017, which was $19.85 million. This account is directly linked to the tourism sector and has been severely hampered by Hurricane Irma. Taxes on international trade is projected at $14.87 million, an 11.91% reduction over the 2017 collection of $16.88 million. Customs surcharge is a major revenue account which falls under this category and is expected to bring in about $12.87 million, 18.82% less than it did in 2017. Import duties is anticipated to raise $61.78 million. This is a 4.26% increase over 2017 projections. The proposed increase in collections is based on increased activity in the construction sector. Fees, fines, and permits collections is estimated to increase by 50.79% to $29.83 million. This increase is owing to the anticipated growth in domain name registration for .ai, which happens to be the domain name for Anguilla, and coincidentally, the acronym for artificial intelligence, which is a very important marketing coincidence. Mr. Speaker, as I've just illustrated, it is obvious that the impact of Hurricane Irma has much to do with a reduced 2018 recurrent revenue budget. We know that the impact will be similar for many households and businesses. We are encouraging all taxpayers to visit the Inland Revenue Department to make arrangements for settling any outstanding or current debt obligations based on your circumstances. Mr. Speaker, in the context of the key departments in the Ministry of Finance, I must pause here to comment on the hard work and dedication of the management of staff of Her Majesty's Customs and the Inland Revenue Department. While these agencies seldom receive the kudos they deserve because of their function as revenue collection agencies, they are indeed the lifeblood of the delivery of government services. As Chief Minister and Minister of Finance, I am constantly on the phone defending these agencies in the execution of their duties. I'm happy to do so because I recognize the tremendous pressure officers can come under when they must insist that persons meet their obligations as citizens. In this role, they are also human beings and are subject to error and perhaps even a bad day. But for the most part, they are simply doing their job and following instructions. It's because of their efforts, particularly of the leadership in these agencies, that Anguilla is able to see real progress in arriving at our revenue targets. Particularly in this challenging year, I want to pay special homage to these agencies for their dedication and service, often beyond the call of duty, to ensure that the resources are available to provide the critical services which the people of Anguilla deserve. Kudos to that department. Mr. Speaker, capital revenue and grants for 2018. It is anticipated that this figure will be $23.98 million from the Anglex share sale. Capital grants for 2018 are estimated at $84.54 million and comprises approximately $68.35 million from the UK government Anguilla Country Program and a total of $16.2 million from the European Union's EDF program. And following the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, the government of Anguilla applied to the European Commission to access reserves of the 11th EDF, specifically the Reserve B, and this is a facility that finances humanitarian and emergency assistance for the overseas territories faced with serious economic and social difficulties of an exceptional nature resulting from natural or man-made disasters. The government was successful in being allocated approximately $8.9 million from this vote. The capital budget, Mr. Speaker, is estimated to be $85.74 million. This is largely subject to financing from the UK government under their Anguilla Country Program. The UK pledged a £60 million, approximately 230 million EC dollars, reconstruction grant to restore a significant proportion of the public infrastructure destroyed or damaged by Hurricane Irma. To date, the funds have been identified to support the repairs, reconstruction, and development of schools, health facilities, government offices, ports, roads, the water distribution system, building resilience in information systems and communications, modernization of public services, and tourism sector development. The associated projects will form the bulk of the capital investment program over the next 3 years. The allocation of $68.35 million in 2018 should focus on a first round of priority projects, which include the development of the Albion Lake Hodge Comprehensive School, Adrian T. Hazel School, the Valley Primary and Morris Vanderpool primary schools, repairs to school playing fields, repairs to the Princess Alexandra Hospital, the development of the Valley Polyclinic, repairs to hurricane shelters and various government buildings, information systems development, and Bloom Point Port development. This support aligns with the implementation of Anguilla's EU EDF 11 program, where the focus is on the implementation of Anguilla's education development plan, including redevelopment of the Albion Lake Hodge Comprehensive School and development of Tibet programs. I'm also pleased to provide an update about funding for the construction of the Anguilla Community College. Mr. Speaker, the government of Anguilla had sent a letter of request to the CDB to access up to $5 million in grant funding from the Infrastructure Fund for Mesoamerica and Caribbean, which is a fund, I think, financed by the Mexican government. This is intended to support the construction of the Anguilla Community College and the outfitting of Tibet workshops at the secondary school. Mr. Speaker, this will enable our students to attain the necessary levels of education, of certification. It's a welcome contribution and grant from this source, and I really would like to thank the Mexican government and the other agencies involved in this project for making it available to the people of Anguilla. We were actually at our wits' end about how we could complete this project. We knew we had to make the sacrifices, but it's welcoming that we are able to get grant funding to make this possible. When I speak of plans for capital development, Mr. Speaker, the need to build, or now in the case of Anguilla, the need to rebuild a better Anguilla, it always seemed to close, I always seem to close with some admonishment, or what I refer to as food for thought. This is because the development of Anguilla is something that is close to my heart, of course close to every heart in this room and outside listening on radio, all persons Anguillian who want to see your country move forward. It is here that emotions come close to the surface. This year, I can't help but speak of what I consider to be the very nature of development assistance. What I speak of now, Mr. Speaker, is humanitarian aid, how it is given and how it is received. Mr. Speaker, Anguilla is a proud nation. It will always have its pride, its limits in what it can allow or visit on its people. Its intimate knowledge of its populace, what is going through, and what it can bear. It is therefore untenable in the pursuit or the acceptance of humanitarian aid that it be bound by constraints tied to conditionalities not related to correction of any purported human rights abuses, but as a bargaining tool to bring one into line with the agenda of the contributing power. The stick and the carrot approach is indefensible, where the real casualty of failure to acquiesce is the welfare of children, the sick, and entire country's rehabilitation following the devastation of a natural disaster. Mr. Speaker, a country in need is one that requires flexibility, time, and streamlined processes to access support. This is not a new way of doing things. It is common sense, and examples of this approach abound. Despite being in need, it must be a level playing field with mutual respect, where a country is not the underdog. No country should be held to ransom. It is not a nice feeling to be on the receiving end of such, and it's also not a good look for any country who administers such in such a way. Mr. Speaker, humanitarian support or aid should be simply that, humanitarian support and aid. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, yet another time, I must express my sincere appreciation for the patience and tolerance demonstrated by this almost captive audience of invitees here in the gallery to my lengthy presentation. Of course, I appreciate listeners on the various media in the comfort of their homes, cars, and offices as well. Fortunately for them, they have the luxury of tuning out without causing the appearance of insult. I humbly apologize if it may appear that I have not shown much appreciation or consideration for your valuable time in this presentation. Unfortunately, I must also be careful not to abridge the tremendous effort that all my colleagues in the ministry put into this exercise. I have genuinely tried to balance these competing concerns in the delivery of this budget address. I have used the phrase natural and man-made in many parts of this presentation because of the challenges we face in the aftermath of Irma falls into these categories. We all are fully aware of the physical impacts of that destructive storm. Those impacts can be readily quantified. And if we had the resources available, with time, we may successfully return our island to a state of normalcy. However, at every turn in the process, the human factor may come into play, namely the trauma associated with losing one's property and other belongings, the feeling of despair associated with being unemployed, losing a job, or underemployed, and the atmosphere of uncertainty that occasionally overwhelms the strongest among us whenever some new setback rears its ugly head. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, many of these setbacks are actuated by decisions or indecisions by other human beings. These are the realities of the setting in which the government of Anguilla must manage the issues impacting our island in 2018. As the older folks used to say, we got it coming and going. But this is not an apology for probable failure. It is rather a call to action. Your government needs your support to make the case that if given half a chance, Anguilla will make it successfully through this period. We have been here before, and our natural resilience as a people has brought us safely through with God's grace. Our administrative power needs to know this. We are not asking for a handout, but rather a hand up with dignity and respect. And we would rather do without than have to be treated as if we are charlatans or fools. In 2009, in the wake of the global financial crisis, I was moved to quote, at that time, President-elect Barack Obama, as he spoke about the economic situation the United States was facing. And he said, and I quote, "We've got to provide a blood infusion to the patient right now to make sure that the patient is stabilized. And that means that we can't worry about the deficit. We've got to make sure that the economic stimulus plan is large enough to get the economy moving," unquote. Mr. Speaker, especially in this recovery year, the strategy for the restoration and recovery of our island is clear. What President Obama was suggesting is that sometimes you must ignore otherwise prudent policies or actions to achieve a positive long-term objective. Anguilla will not survive this period by having a neatly balanced budget on paper. It will not survive by simply increasing taxation and cutting expenditure. It will require positive capital injection to build back stronger and better, and also by finding ways and means to increase economic activity. There can be no sound reasoning for further delay in getting the full support of the generous grant support offered by the British government in this recovery year. And we thank the British government and the UK people for this. And it would be unconscionable to believe that our people are sufficiently recovered to take on the burden of any further taxation in this period. Mr. Speaker, I've come here to pass this budget in the Honorable House of Assembly, and I have been constantly asked by persons within the community over the last few years, and I quote, "Did the British government approve the budget?" Unquote. Mr. Speaker, the very sound of this question suggests that the House of Assembly is a rubber stamp for a civil servant in the Foreign Government Office. And indeed, there was a threat in recent correspondence that this should be so. In this context, Mr. Speaker, let me once again thank the highly qualified and capable staff in the Ministry of Finance, permanent secretaries, heads of departments, other technical officers, my colleague ministers and other members of the Executive Council for their hard work and support in the preparation of the 2018 budgetary estimates. This is a purely Angrillian effort with the specialist resources of regional, international agencies, and the UK government untapped, not on top. Let us continue to maintain this relationship, cast in mutual respect, as we go forward together in this enterprise. Anguilla 2.0, green, smart, resilient, and inclusive. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
I want to thank the Honorable Chief Minister for almost 2.5 hour comprehensive budget review. Almost 2 hours. Is there a second to the 2018 appropriations bill?
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Thank you, Honorable States. As is customary in this House, we will adjourn to our board members the time to prepare the presentation for the debate on the merits and principles of this very important bill. The due date is Monday, 30th April at 9 a.m. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House stands adjourned until the 30th of April at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This Honorable House is now adjourned until April 30th.